Let me paint a quick picture. You're 27. You finally have a real job. Your paycheck is bigger than it was a few years ago. So you do what most people do. You upgrade your apartment, you buy a nicer phone, maybe you finance a car that looks a little ambitious. You tell yourself, I deserve this. I worked hard for it. And look, you're not wrong. But then 5 years pass. You're 32 now. You check your bank account and think, wait, how do I still feel broke? You've made more money than ever before, but somehow, no real investments, no meaningful savings, and retirement feels like a problem for a future you. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Your 20s and early 30s are where most financial futures are quietly decided, not by luck, not by stock picks, but by a handful of decisions most people don't even realize they're making. And if you get these decisions right before 35, your 40s and 50s become dramatically easier. But if you get them wrong, you spend decades playing catch-up. Introduction. My name is Mark, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people build wealth without realizing it. If you're someone who feels like you're working hard but your bank account still doesn't reflect it, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're breaking down the 8 money decisions you must make before 35. And look, these aren't small things like skipping coffee. These are the big structural choices that quietly determine whether your money works for you or you spend the next 30 years working for it. Some of these might challenge what you've always heard about money. Good, because most financial advice people follow today clearly isn't working. Decision number 1. Decide if lifestyle will grow slower than your income. Here's the thing. Most people think their financial future depends on how much they earn. It doesn't. It depends on the gap between what they earn and what they spend. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, consumer spending tends to rise almost exactly in line with income, meaning when people earn more, they simply spend more. New car, better apartment, more dining out. Economists call this lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of wealth. Let's do the math. Person A earns $60,000 and spends $58,000. Person B earns $60,000 and spends $45,000. After 10 years, Person B could have over $200,000 invested with moderate market returns. Same income, completely different life. Here's what most people don't realize. Wealth isn't built by earning more. It's built by keeping the gap open. Before 35, you must decide, will my lifestyle grow slower than my income? If the answer is yes, you're already ahead of most people. Decision number 2. Decide if you will invest or just save. Now look, saving money feels responsible. Investing money feels risky, so a lot of people default to saving. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Savings alone rarely builds wealth. According to long-term market data from the S&P 500, the average annual return of the U.S. stock market has historically been around 10% before inflation. Savings accounts, usually closer to 1 to 3%. Now let's look at a simple example. You invest $500 per month starting at age 25. By 65, assuming an 8% return, you'd have roughly $1.6 million. Now imagine you wait until 35. You invest the same amount, you end up with about $730,000. Same monthly investment, but waiting 10 years costs you nearly $900,000. This is where it gets really interesting, because the biggest wealth advantage isn't intelligence, it's starting early. Decision number 3. Decide what debt is allowed in your life. Look, debt isn't always bad, but some types of debt quietly trap people for decades. For example, credit card interest in the U.S. often exceeds 20% annually, according to the Federal Reserve. That means a $5,000 balance can double in less than 4 years if unpaid. That's not borrowing, that's financial quicksand. But other debt can be strategic. For example, student loans that significantly increase earning power, or mortgages tied to appreciating property. The key decision before 35 is simple. What types of debt will you allow? Because if you don't decide, lenders will decide for you. Decision number 4. Decide if you will prioritize income growth. Here's something that surprises people. Early in your career, income growth matters more than investment returns. Let's say you invest $3,000 per year. That's great. But if you increase your income by $10,000 per year, you suddenly have far more capital to invest. According to research from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis,
Income typically grows fastest during the first 15 years of a career, which means this window matters. Skills, negotiation, side income, career changes, those decisions compound just like investments do. Look, your biggest financial asset in your 20s isn't your savings, it's your earning potential. Decision number 5, decide who you surround yourself with. Now, this one sounds soft, but it's incredibly powerful. According to research cited by Harvard University, social circles heavily influence financial behavior. Think about it. If your friends spend every weekend partying, you spend money. If your friends talk about investing, you think about investing. Behavior spreads through social groups like a virus. And here's what most people don't realize. Your financial habits often mirror the 5 people you spend the most time with. So before 35, ask yourself, are the people around me helping me build wealth or quietly encouraging me to spend it? Decision number 6, decide if you will automate your finances. Let's talk about willpower. Most people think financial success comes from discipline. It doesn't. It comes from systems. Behavioral economists like Richard Thaler found that automatic enrollment in retirement plans dramatically increases savings rates. Why? Because when saving becomes the default, people stop relying on motivation. So here's the simple rule. Automate 3 things: savings, investing, and bill payments. If money never sits in your checking account long enough to be spent, your future self gets paid first. Decision number 7, decide your housing strategy. Housing is the largest expense most people will ever have, and small decisions here create massive long-term effects. For example, someone paying $2,000 per month in rent for 30 years spends $720,000, but someone buying a modest home early may convert much of that into equity. Now, this doesn't mean buying is always better, but the key decision before 35 is understanding the long-term cost of housing choices. Too much house too early? It kills your investment capacity. Too little planning? You spend decades paying rent with nothing to show for it. This decision deserves more thought than most people give it. Decision number 8, decide the identity you want with money. Now, this one might be the most important one, because money habits come from identity. Some people see themselves as someone who enjoys life now. Others see themselves as someone who builds wealth. Neither identity is inherently wrong, but they produce very different outcomes. And here's the thing. Every financial decision you make reinforces one of those identities. The person who invests every month, they eventually see themselves as an investor. The person who spends every bonus, they see themselves as someone who deserves rewards. Identity drives behavior. Behavior drives wealth. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Mark, this sounds good, but I'm already close to 35. Look, you're not late, but the earlier these decisions happen, the easier everything becomes. Because money has one superpower: time. The earlier you start stacking smart decisions, the more time compounds them. The big picture. Let's step back for a moment. These 8 decisions aren't about perfection, they're about direction. If you keep lifestyle inflation under control, invest early, avoid destructive debt, focus on income growth, surround yourself with smart influences, automate finances, think carefully about housing, and build the identity of a wealth builder, then something incredible happens. Your 30s become the decade where wealth actually starts accelerating. Because by then, your income is higher, your investments are growing, and your financial habits are already locked in. Final thoughts. Look, most people think financial success comes from finding the perfect investment. It doesn't. It comes from making a few smart structural decisions early and sticking with them long enough for compounding to work. Your first decade of earning money is incredibly powerful, not because of the money itself, but because of the habits and decisions you lock in. So, if you're under 35 right now, don't waste this window, because the people who quietly make these decisions early, they're the ones who wake up at 45 wondering how their investment suddenly passed $1 million. Not from luck, from time. If this video helped you rethink your financial decisions, make sure to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up, because the goal here isn't to make money look complicated, it's to make it understandable. And once you understand the game, you start playing it a lot better. I'll see you in the next one.